welcome you to the 7th edition of our monthly State of the State address in the year 2024. It is noteworthy that we have stayed consistent with our resolution to be the conscience of our democratic governance through engagements and timely criticisms that are normally expected to help governments at all levels take the right decisions. It has been over 2 years since we started delivering this monthly address, and by the grace of the Almighty God, we will not relent. The month of July has come with a plethora of challenges for Nigerians and critical steps taken in the polity, both at the state and federal levels, making survival for the common man quite difficult. These challenges range from a worsening economy occasioned by unbridled vicious inflation and serious security challenges, diluted with the pro-people judgment on local government autonomy. In the midst of all these challenges, it has remained unclear whether public servants have the solutions to the problems we face today as a people. Osun State has not been without activities either. From several questionable actions of government to so many other social issues, the month of July has been eventful in Osun, requiring the input of well-meaning stakeholders. This address will briefly address the issues we have identified for the month of July 2024 and provide solutions where necessary. Inflation and the economy. What the average person sees is a persistent rise in the cost of goods in a manner that makes life hard for the masses. What is happening, however, is that the federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, does not seem to have a proper grip on fiscal policies as of today. The value of the naira has continued to tumble, while the CBN has not come up with innovative ways to stem the tide and strengthen the currency. The free fall and occasional rise of the naira is currently sickening and worrisome. Prices of commodities have skyrocketed in the markets, and the federal government must quicken its thoughts to ease the pressure on our dear people, lest we fall into anarchy. We call on President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to immediately give marching orders to the fiscal policy stakeholders in the country to map out ways by which the slide of the naira can be altered in the immediate, while working assiduously to boost its value through stimulation of local production and promotion of exportation. New minimum wage. It is also important to state that an increase in the country's minimum wage, as announced, is welcomed with mixed feelings. While we understand very clearly that an increase in the minimum wage could raise our inflation, we believe too that the people expected more than is being offered as minimum wage at this time. We take solace in its proposed review every 3 years, as against 5 years presently, as it is in our law. We charge the government to find smart ways to regulate market prices of goods and services, to ensure that the new minimum wage serves its intent and purposes, so that the civil servants of the country do not receive the minimum wage with one hand and lose same through the high cost of goods and services, as may be occasioned by the payment of the new minimum wage. We take note that the new minimum wage should have been since April, and as such, classes must be affected by ensuring that the arrears are paid as soon as possible, even when it is not yet demanded. This must be followed up with pressures on the private sector to also implement minimum wage in order to achieve and all-encompassing uplift to the living conditions of the citizenry. Government must also return to the drawing board to retune our poverty alleviation policies, as well as our humanitarian service structure. Aside from the reign of corruption in the management of resources allocated for these programs and policies, we must also tune them to current realities so that we do not continue to pay lip service to poverty eradication. It is also important that productivity is increased across the board through human capital development programs that will be implemented across the nooks and crannies of the country. If this is overlooked, the nation runs the risk of never truly succeeding with policies that target poverty eradication and economic growth. The federal government also needs to make it clear to all Nigerians that it is committed to the welfare of citizens by ordering an immediate release of withheld salaries due to members of the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities, ASU, and address the demands of the non-academic staff union of institutions and other unions very timeously. Maintenance of the welfare of workers should form an integral part of the economic growth of any serious nation. Corruption. In recent times, the country has been awash with news of corrupt practices in strategic offices of government. Worthy of mention are the revelations coming from the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and the shameful trading of blames between the oil sector and Dangote refinery. At a time when Nigerians are going through excruciating pain and a fall in their standard of living, whatever is needful and lawful should be done to ameliorate the sufferings of the people, and the majority includes access to petroleum products and its affordability. The petroleum sector of the country has always been described as a hub of corruption, and current revelations about its operations and dealings is not only disturbing, but has confirmed that notion. Therefore, whoever or whatever needs to give way must do to avoid the unbridled wrath of the people. In similar phase, all agencies and parastatals of government need to be saddled with the responsibility of rendering quality services that is people-centered and not a conduit pipe for corruption as seen in recent times. Worthy of mention is the avarice going on in several states of the country. We are aware that since the removal of fuel subsidy, monthly allocations to states have significantly increased, as substantiated by several publications. Citizens are, however, not feeling the difference in the state's earnings, as public servants are instead diverting those monies for private use. We implore the federal government to make public, as it is being done in recent time, all earnings of the state government in Nigeria, to allow their citizens hold their governors accountable for what is accruable to them. The federal government must give immediate charge to anti-graft agencies to take a look at the books of the states as a matter of urgency, in a bid to end the looting and diversion of public funds that has become widespread. In the spirit of the recent judgment of the Supreme Court of Nigeria on local government administration, states must now be held accountable for the diversion of local government funds, which has become a nationwide practice. The book of records over the years must be opened with the aim of ascertaining how much of Commonwealth at the local level has been misappropriated by the states, and they should be made to account for such. The local government, being a distinct arm of government, must not be held down by the greed and corruption of politicians. The federal government must go a step further after the judgment to ensure that states' electoral commissions are not being used to cheat the people and turn their will against them. Something decisive needs to be done on which body conducts election into the offices at the local government level against what is presently obtainable. Looming end bad governance protests. We strongly hold that the right to protest is that of every citizen of this country, and no one should attempt to subdue people's voices whenever they choose to cry out about how they are being governed or misgoverned, as the case may be. The state of affairs in Nigeria is truly worrisome, and people have a right to voice their disapproval as guaranteed by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria for freedom of association, gathering, and speech. We condemn threats by security agents, groups, and political office holders against any form of protest. Our democracy, as presently enjoyed, was born out of agitations. Therefore, if there is any component of democracy that is germane, it is part of freedom. At a time that we have not fully recovered from the woes of the NSAS protest, the looting, maiming, and destruction of lives and property, public facilities that were and still being replaced by our common patrimony or lost forever, we can't afford to have a repeat of such as a nation, and that is why the note of caution is being sounded to the ears of particularly the youth that an uncoordinated protest or one that is without leadership is very dangerous. It is in this light that we caution that the protest be conducted peacefully and no form of infiltration must be allowed by hoodlums and those whose intentions are not in any way patriotic. We already are having a shortage in critical infrastructure in the country, and we cannot afford to, by ourselves, destroy the very few functional national assets in the name of showing grievances against the government. We advise the government to be more proactive and engage the citizens more by being accountable, transparent, and showing empathy in their dealings and demand for the system that accommodates their representation and leadership. Rising insecurity in Nigeria. Recent happenings in the country call for urgent government action in ensuring the security of lives and property. Killings and kidnappings are becoming too popular across the country, especially in the Federal Capital Territory and its environment, where citizens now live in mortal fear. The federal government and the entire security architecture need to urgently re-strategize to arrest the worsening security situation in the country. It is not enough to sympathize with the citizens. We must ensure that perpetrators of evil are made to face the full wrath of the law in order to serve as deterrents to others. Osun State. Education. There's no doubt that the whole country is going through a lot, which has affected the purchasing power of every household. And it is critical that any form of succor necessary is brought to the people to ameliorate their pains. It is in this light that we advise the state government to urgently and passionately consider the reduction in the amount of money payable by students in all the state-owned tertiary institutions as a form of palliative to every household at a critical time like this. Teacher recruitment. One would have thought that the rate at which the state government sold forms and went about the issue of recruitment of teachers in the state were anything genuine and born out of serious concern for the deficit of teachers in schools across the states. But otherwise, as this has otherwise been proven to be the case. It's been months after the sale of recruitment forms, examinations taken, and cut-off marks announced, and yet nothing feasible and concrete has been done about recruiting teachers into our public schools in the state. As the schools go on holiday and a new academic calendar year begins in a few weeks from now, we urge the state government to show responsibility and see through the process to ensure that students resume the next session with average, if not enough number of teachers to teach them as opposed to what is presently obtainable. The people should not be kept in the dark or their hopes hanging in the wind. The time to see through that process is now. Agriculture. We commend the government for the procurement of tractors for ease of doing work in the agricultural sector of the state, and we sincerely hope that this translates to some success that will ensure that prices of food items comes to its lowest in no too distant time. We charge those in charge or that will be in charge to see the tractors as the people's property and not some tools for the use of politicians who are paper farmers. The real farmers for whose the tractors were procured should be made to enjoy it at very minimal rate, if any at all. These tractors must be protected as the state's assets, and as such, whatever measure is needed must be put in place to ensure their routine and regular maintenance so they do not end up as others before them. Fertilizers distribution. You will recall that in our last month's press conference, which the loose spokesperson of the governor turned over its head by misreading clear use of language, we did say we are aware that the state government received the first branch of fertilizers for farmers in the state. We do hope the other tranche has arrived or is still being expected. We again charge the state government on its judicious distribution. Real farmers must be ensured get the fertilizers and not some office farmers who will illegally appropriate the fertilizers to themselves and either resell at higher amounts or make their cronies co-beneficiaries. The distribution of the fertilizers must also not be political. Being a member of any political party of anyone's choice must not debar them from benefiting from Commonwealth. Were it for politics, perhaps the state government would not have ever been considered in any way. Equally, we advise the immediate distribution of the available ones so that farmers can use them to boost production, as dry season farming is not popular here owing to absence of irrigation facilities and the rains are soon to stop. The Osun State House of Assembly. You will recall that in our December 2023 State of the State address, we made a freedom of information request to the Osun State House of Assembly on the Right Honorable Adewale Egbedun, asking him to make public the details of an expenditure of 886,451,882 naira 49 kobo for the month of July, August, and September 2023, quarter 3. It is unfortunate that to date, the leadership of the House of Assembly has carried itself with such arrogance that one will be left wondering if the House considers itself bigger than citizens of the state. For emphasis, we again reiterate and demand that the State House of Assembly make public its expenditures from the last quarter of 2023 and the 2 quarters already passed in the year 2024. You will recall that one of our constituent organizations, Center for Sustained Dialogue, had written a direct letter to the office of Adewale Egbedun, the Speaker of the Assembly, demanding details of same expenditure. We made a public request for same in our December address, but until today, he has neither responded to the direct letter to his office nor reacted to our public request. We must state, however, that it is an act of irresponsibility and ignorance of correct democratic behavior for a young Speaker of the State Assembly to ignore calls for such accountability and probity. We are deeply saddened that a young new entrant into the public service is acting in such a derogatory manner. Ongoing construction in Osun State. We commend the state government's efforts to develop the state infrastructure, especially the state capital, Osogbo. We have in the past expressed our reservations about some of the planned projects, and we hope the state government does not pursue any white elephant projects at this time when resources are scarce. We want to decry the pain and agony that motorists are subjected to in Osogbo and its environs, occasioned by the ongoing construction, and we charge the state government and the contractor handling the work to, as a matter of urgency, create alternative routes in critical areas of the state, and also in the areas where constructions are being made, and also ensure that such is motorable and not in despicable state. We, however, commend the government for its ongoing effort, and we appeal that timely completion of the ongoing projects are achieved. Construction projects are potential health hazards to community dwellers, and thus they must be completed fast and on schedule. We appeal to the state government to ensure strict monitoring of the contractors to ensure that projects are completed on schedule and to designed specifications. Politics. We also advise that the Osun State government and its allies concern themselves more with issues of governance and jettison the constant exchange of tantrums with the opposition All Progressive Congress, APC, and other identified political opponents in the state. Governance overrides political emotions, and the Osun State government must treat it so. Conclusion. The Osun Masterminds remains committed to the development of Osun State and Nigeria, and we shall continue to put government and its actors to task in this regard. We are partners in progress, and we will not at any point in time malign the person or character of anybody in government. We desire to see progress in our communities as we are partakers of whatever becomes of our state and country.